Alright, so the next day we're back on the C4. We're going to work on getting this transmission out. We need to, let's see. Next thing in the instructions is to loosen these driveline beam bolts at the differential. Those are going to be 21 top and bottom. And then we'll go after these two at the transmission, which looks like to be 18s. I'm going to use two different jacks. I have one support stand that we use to support the engine, and then a transmission jack on the transmission before we get started. Unfortunately, both of those over here are a little low, so we're gonna have to bring the lift down. But so let's get at it. All right, so this is what we've come up with. We get engine supported, transmission supported, a couple of straps holding that on there. OSHA approved, I don't know, but good height for us because we're able to wheel around on our carts instead of have to crouch over and get bad backs, or worse than I already have. So now we are going to start on these bolts. So again, so you got 21s in the back, socket on the bottom, and we'll get to the top with a wrench. Alright, so we got all 4 bolts out for the driveline beam. It doesn't really move very far, so probably just like 1.5 fingers width over, whatever that is. So what I'm hoping is that when we release the transmission from the bell housing, we'll be able to move it back straight back far enough, because I can't tilt it down yet because the C-beam's still connected at the differential. Well, it's still slotted with the differential. Move it back far enough that that'll allow us to safely tilt it a little bit towards the driver's side. Be able to get this beam out. That's the plan right now. The transmission, the bell housing, is held in by T55 Torx. I have one, so we're working on figuring out what we need for different extensions and adapters and everything to get to all those. So I'm going to work on breaking those free now and then see where we're at. So I just realized that those the bolts holding the transmission to the bell housing also have, they're also hex bolts. Maybe I'll just fit a socket on that, which I'd rather do that. So I'm going to see what size socket fits on there. All right, so it looks like those the transmission to bell housing bolts are a 19 or a 3/4 inch. So I'm going to work my way around breaking those free, make sure that they all come out. All right. All the 4 bolts are taken out from between the transmission and the bell housing. There is there's a bracket for the breather hose up at the top left, but that's going to come with it. On the C-beam for your parking brake cable, it is, looks like, clamped onto that here, so you want to make sure you take that off. Still haven't quite figured out how exactly this is gonna go. So yeah, be right back. All right, wish us luck.
starting to see some.
Did I go up too far? Or not enough?
Real close to being able to. Can't tell if that shaft is free or not.
Alright, so there's some. Everybody catch that? Alright, so we're separated. We're just trying to work out because you got the beam still in the way. Just trying to sort out all our angles out and everything. I got a little bit of space left. I can go back here, but I'm gonna start hitting here. I don't want to put too much pressure on the input shaft, but it's coming. I got my son up top just watching the engine bay. I'm just kind of lowering the engine, trying to keep it, because I can't tell where that drive shaft, where the input shaft is, while I lower the transmission. So that's what we're fighting with right now. Alright, transmission's out. Kind of took a bunch of working back and forth. I may have been being more gentle than needed to. Sorry, if I got the fan on, I'm starting to sweat. I was just trying to be real cautious about the input shaft, and finally just kept working, trying to keep the engine and the transmission at the same angle as best I could with my son watching up top, and finally able to pop it out. The old Doug Nash is free. Alright. On to the next thing. Here's the Doug Nash 4+3 out of the car in all its glory. Made in the USA, Tennessee, it says. Now, if we're going back under the car. Alright. I inadvertently pulled my throwout bearing out, but this is what we got left. So, this is the bell housing. We got to take the hydraulics off. We have to take the starter off, the dust cover, and get that bell housing removed. Remove the clutch. I do have a new McLeod clutch that we're going to be putting in, but we need to remove all that. Because we need to be able to measure our runout with the dial indicator. So that's what we're going to go after now. So that's out, as we said before. So now I'm going to go after the hydraulics, which I think I mentioned I just did prior to leaving on Power Tour. All that is fresh. This kit does use your stock hydraulics, so this would be a great time, obviously, if you needed to replace that. So it's going to be a 15. There's 2 bolts holding this slave cylinder in. This rubber boot that's about it. So let me take that out. I'll be right back. There's a small nut bolt, by the way, at the back of the slave cylinder for this heat shield. I know mine was I don't know, like a 1/4 inch or something, but I replaced that when I did the slave cylinder because I lost the original bolt, so that might not be the same for you. But so we get this top bolt off the slave cylinder. I'm going to support the slave cylinder with a bungee cord or something in the meantime, just so it's not hanging here. That's it. There's picture that rod. You don't lose that rod. If it comes out, the pointed end. You see that pointed end goes to your fork. So, I'm gonna try and keep that together, and then just find a place to hang this up. But that's the slave cylinder. All right, so we're taking a look at the starter here. What we're going to be going after first is we got these 2 nuts here on the knock sensor shield. We're going to take off that connector for the knock sensor. We're then going to go after these support bracket. I've already sprayed these down with some Croy oil. So we're going to loosen that nut, take that off, and then we're going to Haynes manual anyway, it says to loosen that bracket at the engine so that we can swing it out of the way. Silver Sports instructions say to just let this hang or support it, but I'm going to remove the starter all the way. So that means taking off the wiring right there, and then we have 1 and 2 bolts. And that should, and you have, I have a clip here holding this wiring harness that I think that actually might be attached to the bell housing. So, all right, so there's the starter. Gonna get to taking that out. All right, we got the starter out. Just so you know, that top bracket bolt there, I had nothing to be able to get to that without taking the manifold off, so I didn't. I was able to still get the starter out by just bringing it out of the bottom part of the bracket there. My knock sensor wire disintegrated, the connector disintegrated, so we just ordered one of those. Luckily they're available on Amazon, so we're going to replace that. And then this little wire right here I didn't see originally until I was pulling the starter out. So just, you got 2 wires, big one on top, smaller one on the bottom, connected to the starter. You may have known that, but I didn't see that. So starter is out. I definitely don't know how you would hang this out of the way like the instructions say, so I would suggest taking it out. And then I'm going to have to end up splicing in that new knock sensor connector, but that's not the end of the world. Looks like it was getting a little hot anyways. So, all right, moving on. Okay, I'm going to start going after the bell housing bolts. Right now I'm seeing 1, 2, 3, 4, 6 bolts. And then back here, Dom's working on taking off the dust shield. Series of, I don't know, 10 millimeters or whatever those are, I'm not sure. 7/16 he says. So he's working on the dust shield. And I'm going to get these bell housing bolts off. Alright. Bell housing bolts are out. We have one of the bolts left on the heat shield that looks like it's bottoming out against the oil cooler. I'm not really sure what to do with that yet. I'm going to try and wiggle this off. So yeah, there was 6 bolts. This bolt up here I had to get to from the side with a wrench, and 2 of my bell housing bolts weren't even tight, just whatever that's worth to you. So that's all off. Most of these are off. Like I said, we got one bottoming out over here, so we're going to work on figuring that out. Okay, update from just a couple minutes later. One, just so you know, that last bolt for the dust shield, as soon as we removed the bell housing just a little bit, we were able to back that out, so that was no problem. And then it was just a matter of getting it off the pins. And I will say again, this wire loom, you can see this is the bolt up here that I had to get through from the side, and this loom definitely got in the way trying to pull the bell housing off. But it did come off, and definitely somebody's been in there. It's a Sachs clutch. I don't think that's OEM, so somebody's definitely been in here to do this clutch, which is probably why they didn't torque all those bell housing bolts down. So when you don't know anything about your car, fellas, it's not a bad idea to work on it to find out what's going on in there. Alright, so here's the bell housing down here, and now I'm going to pull the clutch apart to get to the flywheel so we can start doing our run-out measurements. Alright, clutch is out. Flywheel doesn't look too bad. We got to take the pilot bearing out. And I'm going to take the flywheel off because I want to do the rear main seal while I'm in here. Per the instructions for to measure the runout, I've removed 2 of the flywheel bolts. That's where we're going to stick the dial indicator, the magnetic base for the dial indicator. And I am going to fit the bell housing back up. This does need to be torqued to the proper specifications, and they say to tighten these the bolts around the pins first for an accurate reading. So that's what we're gonna do. Alright, bell housing's back up. Haynes manual said 25 to 35 foot-pounds for the clutch housing or bell housing to the engine. So all 6 of those are torqued back down. That's looking good. We ran some 000 steel wool just around the edges, just to make sure that was all clean, nothing to that's going to affect our measurements. This is where is it? So this is the Harbor Freight dial indicator magnetic base. So we haven't gone through trying to set it up. I'm going to do that now. I removed 2 of the flywheel bolts, so that's where the base is going to set, and then we're going to try and figure this out. And we'll let you know. Alright, so here's our setup for Runout. Wish us luck. We went around one rotation already, but we hadn't marked it. But we did make sure that it went around, kept contact. So now we're going to do another 360 and come back to that point and make sure that it comes back to 0 when we hit that point. All right, so we had good results. I got my college engineer kid running the dial for me and doing the numbers because he's the wicked smart one. And we actually came up with 0.0015 of runout, which is well within spec. I'm not going to go over how to do this because I don't want to be responsible for anybody. There's instructions, and Silversport has a great video that we used. Shane, actually the guy from Silversport that helped us with our sale, with our purchase, he's in the video. So I will link that in this video, and I suggest that you watch their official video. But we had good success. I'll say with this Pittsburgh setup, you'll see if you buy this setup, there is a section of arm that has a long piece and a short piece, and then it can bend in the middle. I actually took that apart. There was too much going on in there. So I took that apart and just used the longer piece. It'll make sense to you when you see it. But all right, but I'm very happy with that. We are well within spec. So now I get to take this bell housing off again and keep moving. But that was good. All right, so here's after a little bit of cleanup, got the flywheel off, bell housings off, and I had a little bit of seepage around my rear main seal. For reference, my car now has 76,000 miles on it. We just did 3,000 miles on the Power Tour and had about 72. So I'd say 76,000 miles on it. I wouldn't say it was concerning, but it definitely was seeping a little bit. So we're going to change that out and start reassembly probably tomorrow after we hit the parts store. So that's going to do it for tonight. We'll see you tomorrow. Hey, how you doing? It's the next day. We haven't really done too much on the car today, and it's late. It's probably 5 o'clock in the afternoon. We did do a parts run. We got a new flywheel, new rear main seal. We had to flush out our parts washer, finish doing some cleaning up and stuff like that. It's hot and humid today, so we didn't get tons done. I did just finish tapping in that new rear main seal. It's not really specific to this transmission swap, so I didn't show it, but 4-inch piece of PVC used to tap that in, went in pretty easy. So now we're getting ready to pull the pilot bearing. I got a new flywheel, so we're going to mount the flywheel up, pull the pilot bearing, put the new bearing in, all that fun stuff. So that's where we're at. All right, so we got the old pilot bearing out. Reference $25 at Harbor Freight. That worked great. Also for reference, so the bearing that comes with the kit actually has rollers, like needle bearings in it. Just for reference, if you buy a new clutch kit like I did, the one that came out of here and the one that's in the clutch does not have that. So that leads me to think that the TKX needs this particular bearing here. Came with the kit, right? So this is what we're gonna go with. So we're gonna clean that up a little bit more, and I'm gonna tap this guy in. Okay, new bearing installed. It was 3/4 and whatever the next size up there, 13/16 were the two sockets that I use. Seem to work well. Tapped it in there flush per the instructions. Okay, I got my new flywheel torqued on. Haynes manual said 63 to 85 foot-pounds, so we were rated in that upper end of that range in a cross pattern. And I used the old wrench trick here, one of the starter bolts and a clutch bolt, and held it in place with no problem. So I'm going to make sure to wipe that down, get the film off of it before we finish putting the clutch in, but there's the new flywheel. Alright, we get the new McLeod clutch installed. I don't know if we showed it the other day, but here's the knock sensor that we had, wire that we had to replace. So that's all set. So now we have to move up top to start making our cutout. So back here, so here's where the stock linkage came through. Sorry for the light. So there's a plate that's going to cover that up. So we'll fit that. We need to paint it, and then I believe the cut's going to be up here, but I believe the measurements are from the inside. So let's go check that out. Alright, so we're inside the car here, looking at the transmission tunnel. Here's our piece from Silver Sport that's meant to cover up this hole. It's very well cut, fits nicely right there. They have two pre-drilled holes that line up nicely. So we're going to paint this, and when we put this in, I'm going to end up using some silicone or some RTV or something, and got to read the instructions to see if they want you to use more than just those two holes that they've drilled, or if that's going to be enough. But there's the mock-up for that, and here's the rest of the tunnel. I'm going to go check the measurements. I believe we're going to be cutting out this section here. Alright, so here's our instructions for preparing the opening. You see in this picture here, they want you to go 0.375 inches in. Okay, that's where our cut's going to start. It's a 5-inch wide cut, and it's 3 1/4 inches down from the top. And then they have you going in 1 inch towards the passenger side of the vehicle. So on the top here, the top of the tunnel, you have a 1 inch by 5 inch opening. And then they also want you to drill 2 1/4 inch diameter holes at the 2 lowest points in the pocket for drainage. So because you're going to be covering this opening with sheet metal, and that's going to be closed off, so you want to make sure water's obviously going to get in there, that it has somewhere to go. So we're going to get to measuring. Alright, so working on inside the car, I noticed that their instructions have you measuring 0.375 after this plate is installed, so we're going to install that first. We've already mocked it up. I got my rivets. We know that fits well. I'm going to do an outside bead of sealant around the edge of this panel, and this is just what I'm doing, but this is just regular black RTV sealant. Alright, so I got a bead of silicone around the hole itself, and then I put one around the edge of the panel. I figure we can never be too safe here. Alright. You there? You got the washer on? Stay on. Yeah. If I hit the camera, I apologize. So there's one rivet. My son's underneath with the washers on the other side. Ready? Okay. There you have it. Panel is installed. Alright, here's my markup of the 5-inch by 3 1/4 inch hole cutout, approximately 0.375 inches from that plate. I used cardboard templates that I made to try and help me with that. I'm probably going to cut on the inside of the line, give myself some leeway. I can always make it bigger. I can always take material away, but we can't add material. So now I'm going to get set up to cut. All right, I'm gonna keep working my way around. I'm gonna work between this Dremel bit and the cutoff wheel as needed. This actually seemed to cut through better than I thought it would, and is creating less of a mess. You can see I peppered my nice fresh RTV with some fiberglass dust. All right, we're just gonna keep making our way around. This will be a fast forward with music type of. All right, looking under the car, we can see we have this bracket here that was used to hold the old shifter, and our cut's gonna come right down across that. We got 2 rivets here and here. I'm gonna drill out from the inside. This seems to be the only thing holding that on. That wasn't in the instructions to remove this, but clearly it has to get out of the way. So we're gonna drill that out and get that bracket out of there. With that bracket removed, we're going to keep cutting. Up, up, up. Stay just behind me a little bit. Down a little bit. Hold. Alright, that's our initial hole. I'm going to just assume that fiberglass in the RTV is just going to make it even stronger. So now I'll check those measurements, and then we have to go 1 inch across the top. So they want you to do 1 inch in from here. So I'll measure that out as well after I just double check this opening. But I went on the inside of the line, and if I need to grind it open, make it a little bigger to fine tune it, I will. All right, we made our marks for the inch up across the top of the tunnel, and we're going to start making those cuts. Alright, so here's our initial hole. We're going to go with that, and when we fit the transmission, if we have to make any adjustments, we will, but that should be 3 3/4 by 5 inches, and then 1 inch across the top. So you can see we're still on the lift because we're supporting the engine, so we've been working off ladders here, but we got it done. I'm happy, not too bad. Obviously the kind of one of the more worrisome parts of this job is making that hole, but I think we did a pretty good job. All right, so we decided to try to help protect underneath there, we're just going to apply some undercoating to that bare metal, just to give it a little bit of chip resistance. So, all right, got the brand new bell housing. Lost the receipts, and by brand new I mean looks pretty good though. VHT satin paint. All right, so we have that. I have my new throwout bearing installed. There it is, in my clutch fork. Put a little grease in here. Let's see, we'll put it down here and on the pivot ball here. Grease that up. Should be good. Harder to get down in than I thought it was going to be, but alright. So that's greased. Let's get this hook here. We'll slide this in. And voila! Clutch fork and throwout bearings installed. So I'm going to go get this, the bell housing torqued onto the car. Okay, we're going to start installing the bell housing, clutch housing. Listen to the Haynes manual, they call it clutch housing. We always call it a bell housing. Cleaned all the bolts, bolt threads, make sure that those are all cleared up. They're 9/16. I got this wire in up here tucked out of the way. It does end up sitting on this side of the bell housing, but when I drop the motor down to put the transmission in, I'll just make sure we flop that over because it gets severely in the way when you're trying to put this thing back up. So, just going to work on it. Remembering that according to, I have my starter bolt in here from installing the flywheel and everything. So according to Silver Sports directions, they have you tighten the bolts closest to the pins first. So we'll follow that again here. At least we'll try. That's on. And that's on. Just making sure nothing's pinched. Okay. Nothing's in the way. You got one bracket up top left here. I don't know if you can see that. One bracket up top left here, and that actually has, on mine anyways, did have this little washer with it. So just for when you're remembering to put that back on. Alright. Let's sit here for a second. If I can get these bolts started, I'll be right back. Alright, still working on the bell housing. One thing I remembered, see that you get that one dust shield bolt that's behind the oil filter and oil cooler. We weren't able to back that one all the way out until the bell housing was loose. So I'm going to put that bolt in now. I have the dust shield just set up here. I'm going to put that bolt in now while this is loose, so that we don't have to fight with it later. Alright, bell housing is installed, dust shield's installed, bell housing bolts are torqued to 35 foot-pounds. Up in this top corner here, the bolt above the pin, just remember you have a bracket that holds your starter wire. I almost forgot that. That goes over that bolt, and then you have another, like I mentioned before, up top, way up top here, there's another bracket for the wire loom. Just make sure you get those in there. So, bell housing is installed. Okay, got the starter installed. I did grab a CarQuest remanufactured one, but the bell of the starter, I'm going to call it, the nose of it, was a little bit bigger and wasn't fitting through the dust plate. So my starter was working, I was just figuring while I was in here. So for now I just threw that one back up. Alright, we're going to install the clutch slave cylinder now. Before the Silver Sport instructions say to have that installed prior to installing the transmission. So grease that. So on the clutch fork, the shift fork there, where this rod is in here. There we go. I know I just recently did this slave cylinder, so I know the other side is greased. I'm just going to want to make sure that I have the heat shield hanging on here just so I didn't lose it. So you just want to make sure that that is on the shift fork, and then we start those bolts. Alright, the clutch hydraulics, the slave cylinder is reinstalled, heat shield's on. Don't forget, like I just did, to put the heat shield on when you're putting that bottom bolt on. Okay, clutch slave cylinders installed, boots installed, shift fork, clutch fork, roll bearing, everything's looking pretty good. Alright, we're just about ready to start trying to get this transmission in here. Here's a look at our hole from the other side. Oh. So hey, that's going to do it for part 2 of the video. In part 3, we're going to get the transmission in the car. We're going to get the exhaust back in the car. And we're actually going to get the car running and driving and take it for a test drive. So if you've made it this far through the series, I really appreciate it. And stay tuned for part 3 because it's going to be a good one.